And I think there was a shift. It might have really been in that first year or two where that urgency of, oh, they want to buy a house. I have to help them buy a house now shifted where I thought I like knew in me that I said, oh, I'm going to be here. So if they come back in 2 years and 5 years, that's okay. I'll be here. That urgency to have them like close on a home shifted for me. And I think that really helped my business.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. I'm Daniel Berger. I am excited to have Sammy Lyon on this week. He comes to us from LA. He got into real estate in 2018. Before that, he's been an educator for 10 plus years. He's also, what I love about what he does is it's working for good. He commits 5% of his gross profits to social and racial justice causes, which I think is unbelievably amazing. And I want to thank him for that. And I also want to thank him for being on the show. With that, Sammy, thank you for coming on.
Daniel, thank you for having me.
You know what? I certainly want you founded Good Rents, talk to me a little bit about that and how I really like what you're trying to do. We hear so much about LA and obviously from television, it's all about the high end and multi-million dollar listings and open houses that have sushi parties and trapeze artists and what have you. But while that is true for some, it's not true for most. And I love that what you're trying to do for the other half. And as you told me before, you were born and raised in LA. So what you're doing is really trying to help people, the inhabitants of LA who are born and
Yes,
raised and actually make LA work. So talk to me a little bit about Good Rents and what you're about.
I love it. Thank you. Yes, born and raised in LA. I do watch Selling Sunset. It's fun, but yeah, that's not my world. So Good Riddance is evolved. So I did not start out to be a real estate broker. I had no interest in being a broker. I really got hooked on real estate as an investor. Hey, I got really into Bigger Pockets, the real estate investing social network, and was listening to the podcast and got really hooked on the idea of financial freedom and house hacking and like real estate as a tool for building wealth, building income, just not relying on like the 9 to 5 job. And even though I loved what I did, I was an educator, just like by accident ended up teaching an after school program after college. And I was like, oh, this is great. I love this. And went down that whole path. But I think I started hitting that you've been in an industry for 10 years, you start becoming like higher up, the more bureaucracy. And then I was in the like bureaucratic part of education. And I don't know, I just couldn't, it was the perfect timing to learn about financial freedom through real estate because I was like, I can't do this for 35 more years. So I think that was when I was thinking about investing in real estate. I was also trying to figure out how do I keep my social justice values and ethics in it. And so that was how Good Rents was born, which was this idea of, okay, I'm going to buy a house. And I'm in LA. So I found $46,000 houses in Ohio that I was like, oh, I could afford this. And then when you think about it, why is the rent $900 a month? And why is my mortgage $350 a month? Like, why isn't that person just buying that house? It costs more to rent it, at least in markets like that. And so that was the idea, was to put 5% aside from the rents to help that resident then purchase the home, because the barriers are in real estate: down payment and credit, access to lending. That's evolved. And then as I became a real estate broker, I thought, oh, well, I'll just do the B Corp Patagonia thing. And 1% didn't feel like enough. I did 5%, and that's been my commitment. So it's evolved. 5% came from.
What I like is you're like, I didn't think about being a real estate person. And I like that because people like to say when all else fails, go into real estate, right?
Well, there I am.
I tried my luck at this or that, and I wasn't good at that. So I'm gonna, hey, what other career do you not need a college education? And it's, oh, real estate, I'm gonna do that. you're younger and better looking than me, so at least you certainly have that thumbs up for that. This is my third career, right? So I agree with you. I'm more in the sales and marketing, and I was in bottled water for a while, which actually the company that owned Perrier Group of America, they owned Arrowhead and Calistoga, which are California brands. And then I worked for a company called, I was in the coffee world for a while, Green Mountain
Mm,
Coffee, and they had that same proceeds to charity and fair
yeah.
trade. And so I learned that as well. That's important to do. But what's interesting is, so I think, it's always good to try to give back. It makes you feel good and it does give you a purpose. But what I was, my point is that why am I in real estate? Because I heard what you said about corporate. And even like when Green Mountain Coffee was not corporate when I started, but then it started getting more
Hmm.
corporate and Cola bought it and then hedge funds. And so now it's no, I would never want to be there. So I bought a franchise and I'm the broker for the exact reason is that I hate corporate America. I want to be able to do what I feel is proper and good and legal, and not because that's the way we've always done stuff. I'm very creative in doing it, and it's good that I only have to do what's my board and my state say is okay, not because a broker or an investor
Hmm.
says no, you can't do it that way. And I like being the broker with having agents that work with me. They don't work for me. I probably actually work more for them, but always trying to come up with something better, different, and special, and allowing them, as an example, if they put a deal together and they can come to me with any amount of whatever the commission is. If you're fine with it, I'm fine with it. So I would never. I've had clients that are like they do business for their church and they want to make sure that can they donate it. I'm like, absolutely. I like if you're going to do it to donate the entire commission to your church, then
Yeah.
go do it. And so I like that I'm able to allow that as well. So 2008. So you're basically your eighth year in real estate. So did you do any buying and selling and real estate business before 2008, before you became an agent, or you started doing it all together?
So 2018 was when I bought my first investment property. And then my contract that was grant funded. I was doing all these kind of innovation, environmental justice projects in schools. So I had a lot of my positions were grant funded. And I could see it starting to dry up. So it ended up being a good time to pivot. So the grant wasn't renewed. So I was unemployed and I had been applying for jobs, but I met with a career coach and she was just like, "You sound really burnt out, to be honest, Sammy. Could you take a break? Is that financially possible for you?" And so that was awesome advice because, yeah, I was able to take a few months of a break and kind of resettle. And in that break, now I had all the time in the world. I ended up buying like 10 more units in those few months. And I got super creative because I didn't have a job. So I didn't qualify for traditional financing. So I had JV partners, friends asking if they could invest with me. And I did hard money loans. I did all sorts of fun. I just figured out how to buy more property. And I think that was really cool because I still had no intent to be a real estate broker, but I was just doing it and learning, oh, I read about that strategy. Let me just do it and figure it out. And so I did all sorts of fun, like delayed financing, everything I read about. I was like, let me try it. So by the time I actually did a transaction, I just got my license, frankly, to extend my unemployment because they they extend your unemployment if you keep taking classes. I really truly had no intent to be a real estate agent. But by the time I actually did do this for other people, I had already, I don't know, like 13 transactions under my belt where I had done all sorts of different strategies. So I think that was helpful because 2020, I got licensed and emerged into the COVID LA real estate market, but not super green. So I think that helped me just hit the ground running, basically.
I think actually you came from it the best way. You came from it as an investor because there's a lot of people that are in the business that have never invested or they've never owned a property. How, like, that's mind boggling, right? That someone's able to guide people in a process that they've never done themselves. So as a homeowner, I certainly you can do it, right? Like certainly a male doctor can be an OBGYN with never having a baby, right? So it is possible when you learn about it, but certainly going through it, I think does help, at least in our world of real estate, because as things happen all the time where you own a property and then maybe not in California, but here in New York, pipes freeze and you got leaks and you got to, but
I
there's
know.
other, you might have
Ohio, I
flooding,
had,
you have
yeah.
fires, you have floods, right? You have whatever. We know that it's not just cut and dry and it's not just by the P&L and you need to have money for a rainy day because things can happen. Tenants cannot pay rent and you have to
Yeah.
then worry about. So I love that you started as an investor and then, I see the fit and how you transitioned in because if you were working in education, that's all you are doing really as a real estate person is you're
Yeah.
educating people about real estate, about maybe financing. You did creative financing, so you have that in your toolbox that you can help people who were in similar situations from your that you were in, and you're basically guiding people along the trail. Like people talk about, I hate selling. I go, real estate's not so bad because you're not think if you're good at it,
Yeah.
you're not selling anything.
No. You're
So
really, and I think that was a great way to get into it for me because I think people just naturally saw what I was doing and started asking me, "Oh, can you help me do this?" And it took me a while to realize, like, I didn't really actually understand that being a realtor meant doing sales. I
right.
like it took me a couple years to be like, "Oh, this is a sales job," because I really was just like, "Oh yeah, I can help you do that. Like, I know how to do that," and realize that
I mean,
that's
I,
what a
I think
real
if you're,
estate
I
agent
think if you're
does.
doing it well, it's not sales, it's customer service. You're basically
Yes. Yes.
your clients have a need, and you're educating them, you're providing information, you're bringing experts to them to help them. Generally, if it's a buyer, they've probably already, the time they've even contacted you, they've already thought about that they need a home, they want a
Yeah.
second property, they want a vacation home. And so you're just guiding them through the best
Yeah.
decision making to fulfill that. And maybe you say, you know what? I don't think now's a good time for you to do this because X, Y, and Z, or it doesn't make sense. So this property's too value too high for the math that you have, right? Maybe some of our selling is selling people out of deals.
Oh, I talk myself out of business all the time, specifically with selling property. Obviously, there are reasons that people want to sell a property, but the first question I ask is, but what are you gonna do with the money? Do you need it to what? To move, to buy something else, to and then in that conversation, sometimes people will say, "Oh, I don't actually want to sell. I just can't afford the payment." I'm like, "Oh, okay, then that's a different conversation. Let's look at your refinance options. Let's look at this." Or, "Oh, I don't really want to move, but I need to fix the roof." I'm like, "Oh, you can get a HELOC for that." Just like people come to me and say they want to sell, and usually I ask why. Because
Uh,
then what, right? Like, where are you going to live?
my
Um,
first question for when someone asks me to sell is where are you going? Not
right.
necessarily what you're going to do with the money, but where are you going?
Where are you
Because
going to live?
right, where are you going to live? Oh, moving to Florida. Great. And then it's, oh,
Okay.
can I help you with that? And find some, or I'm moving in with this, or so then I'm like, that doesn't work. Or they're like, oh, so we have to come up with a plan. If you want to sell, and then I have to find out, are you able, what do you want to do? Okay, I want to buy something. And then we have to know,
Mhm.
are you able to buy the product before selling or after
Yeah.
selling? And I
Yeah.
can't even, right? I have to know those answers beforehand because if I have clients right now, they're like, I'm listing their product, but they're going to be moving in with family because they have to 100% close before they
Right.
can even, so then we can't even, like, there's no point of looking for a property because what money are we going to use for a down payment? And what happens if your sale doesn't happen? So
Mhm.
those are great steps. So what I think, Sammy, what we both do is that we're not really unselling. Maybe we are for a specific transaction, but we're creating loyalty for long-term
Mhm.
customers where when the time is right, they're going to call you because you had their back.
And I think that was a turning point because 2021 was when I truly quit any other job and just said, you know what, I'm going to do this full time. So I'm in my 6th year now, full time realtor. And I think there was a shift. It might have really been in that first year or two where that urgency of, oh, they want to buy a house. I have to help them buy a house now shifted where I thought, I like knew in me that I said, "Oh, I'm gonna be here. So if they come back in 2 years and 5 years, that's okay. I'll be here." There, that urgency to have them like close on a home shifted for me, and I think that really helped my business. Just like that sort of calm and confidence of it's okay. Like I'll be here. Don't stress about your timeline. It'll be right when it's right for you. So I think that's been great for me as a business owner to really just settle into that confidence, which is scary. Your first 5 years, you've been doing it longer than me, but your first 5 years of business, it's a little scary.
I also had,
It's awesome.
I also had a safety net, and I'm lucky because I'm married with, and my partner has a job, right? So it wasn't like that. If I didn't get the sale, my rent's not being
Hmm.
paid, right? My mortgage is not being paid. And I'm certainly thankful for my wife. And, but I think, so that's made me a better agent because
Yeah,
I
for sure.
never, and I think I would have, so to be fair, I believe this is how I am and I would always do this, but I can only tell you what I am, right? So I
Yeah,
can't tell you what I wish I might be. But because of that, I've never pushed anyone. I've never needed the sale. I've never pushed
yeah,
anyone to the sale. I would hope that's how I would always be. I believe that because in the end of the day,
I
I
think
believe
so.
me being genuine and my clients feeling that I'm not doing stuff for the money. And I don't care about, I actually, what drives me is at the end of our transaction, when I can send them a link to do a referral of me, right? To do a recommendation, whether it's on
Hmm.
Zillow, on Google, or what have you. That's actually what drives me. And I feel that, and I think you've done, I think I read that your transactions have been from 279,000 to $9 million. And mine's actually, I've gone from maybe $10,000 for a small piece of land to, I think my biggest is 4 million. But in between, that's a
Yeah,
big runway. But I don't do it for the money. I know you don't do it for that either. We do it. It's they're both clients, right? The $10,000 property, the $4 million, all their people, and they have wants, desires, and how do you help satisfy them? Because if you
yeah,
satisfy them, you're going to be a long term person that they'll call Danny and Sammy. That funny that rhymes, but they'll call us because we had their back.
yeah. And I think it's also just seeing it as a relationship business. And I think that you talk to a lot of brokers on your show, so you know more than I do, but I feel like everybody has their strengths of how, like, some people are just amazing at cold calling, door knocking, and they just knock that out of the park. But personality wise, I think if that's what I was doing it all day, I would hate real estate. And I just feel really grateful that I'm a broker now. But obviously, when I started, I had a broker. I feel super lucky, Nick Dow, shout out, that he's also a relationship guy, right? So he's not just a broker, but a mentor. And even he encouraged me to become a broker. I said, okay, I'll do it, but can I still stay with you? I don't want to go out on my own. Having that partnership is super helpful. And now we own a property management company with two of our team. We co-own it. So, that mentorship, I think, from somebody also who's a broker who has a similar approach to you. I think I just feel really lucky that he also made sure that I knew and ran my business as this is a relationship business. And we don't play it as a numbers game when that's fine. And I think that works great for some people. But I think for me, it's that 279. I take special pride in transactions like that because I'm in LA and there's such a bad rap of everything's over a million. I'll never be able to afford a home. And that was a 1 bedroom condo we that buyer has since sold that, bought another property. He was actually texting me just before we got on this call to buy his third property. Like, that's where he started. I'm proud of that client, like, just starting there and now moving on to multiple properties. I think the point is you're helping one person through their journey of whatever that is. And they might buy a house and then they might sell that house and buy a bigger one or an investment property. Then they might buy a space for their business. They might lease a space
And
for their business.
refer you to friends, family, and colleagues.
Refer.
I have clients that it keeps moving and keeps moving. And so we are similar in the sense that I have never door knocked and I've never made a cold call.
I
I've
did
done
try, but I lasted like 1 hour. Not
I
even,
wouldn't
maybe half an hour.
I couldn't even contemplate doing that, which is funny because when I worked for Poland Spring on the East Coast, I would actually go up and down the streets of Queens, New York, going into little commercial stores like the telephone stores and other things, trying to sell them bottled water.
Did
I
it
was in
work?
my, it did. I was very successful doing that. It was in my 20s, and now that as a 57-year-old old man, I refuse to do that. I've been doing real estate for 10 years. The way that I position myself is through, advertising on Zillow, where if people click, where people will call us as a buyer's agent. And I had no problem. Listen, so I was 47 when I started. How am I going to get into real estate in a world with people that have been doing this for years
Yeah,
and are entrenched in the market? How am I going to get my voice out there and so that I can
yeah,
be who I am? And it was just working with anyone that would work with me and buyers. And I think it was by my fifth year, maybe it was like my fourth year, I did 52 transactions, 26 buys and 26 sells. And so I was like, and as I got more, I needed to get experience in transactions to know
right.
and to feel comfortable that I would be okay as a listing agent as well. So last year I was a listing agent for a $3.6 million property. It was the highest priced property that sold in my town last year. But I don't need to be the biggest or the best in my town or I just want to be me and I want to be able to help
Yeah,
people, right? So I do think there's enough work for all of us to be able to succeed. That's what I like, where it's a win-win situation, right? Where you can put together a deal where you win, your client wins, the seller wins, and everybody wins because
yeah,
everyone comes to an agreement, and it's not like I win, you lose.
yeah.
So real estate's kind of cool that way. So you talked about that you're a boutique brokerage. Tell me how that is in your market, and as there's a lot of consolidation going on in our industry, and what do you feel that's going to look like for you in the future?
Yeah. No, it's interesting timing here, 2026, with how much these big companies are, I don't know, making moves in the market. Luckily, there's still space for us small folks who are just doing our thing. We're very small, and the goal has never really been to have a lot of agents, and there's really no requirement to produce. There's no like desk fees or monthly anything. And everyone's really just treated as like their own business, their own person. So we don't make anybody use a CRM from our company. So everyone's really independent. And like you said, work with, not for. I think that's very much how we approach it. And so, yeah, we're just like a small but mighty team. I forgot to get our numbers but I think we did maybe 40 million the year before. I don't know if that was 2024 or 2025, but we're pretty high producing, but we don't have a corner of the market. We're not like, oh, this area of LA or this type of property. We
Yeah,
really,
I don't think you really need that. So I know my numbers. So last year I did
yeah,
55 transactions, $40 million in sales. My company did, I think we did 150 transactions at 90 million. But doesn't matter, right? Because ultimately it's about helping people, right? And while real estate agents like to post on social media what they are or whatever, it's
right.
irrelevant. It doesn't help our clients that we're this or we're that.
Yeah,
Um, and the other thing I
exactly.
would say is it's not how much you gross, it's what you net, right?
Right.
So people might have fancy offices or fancy this and fancy that. That doesn't really help. It's at the end of the day, what do you take home? So what's interesting is I have no virtual assistant. I have no assistants. I do my own. I don't have a transaction coordinator. I do all of the paperwork. I'm the broker. I
Oh,
do, I do all the paperwork myself. So I also do payroll and I do all of that for my brokerage because I don't think you need to scale for the sake of scaling.
no.
And you actually touched on that. Think about it. I can do what I've done 90 million, 150 transactions with just me.
Yeah.
In order to then get another person that I'm going to pay them a fair wage, I have
Yeah.
to do so much more. And
More.
again,
Yeah.
I don't need to say that we're this or we're that.
Yeah.
What I do want when people actually look at our reviews and say that myself or people that are that are in the business did a good job, took care of us, made it all work. So that's
Yeah.
what's more important. And so I do like that about we don't need to be the biggest and the best. If Sammy can be the best Sammy that he can be, and the people that you're mentoring and me as well, then we're good.
It allows us, I think, to be our own people too. Like we all have our own interests. We're not like, oh, everybody's on the same track. Like we're all doing the same type of transactions. And I think that's what I really like about what we do is we've done gas stations to condos to vacant land to office buildings. Like it's all real estate. And ultimately it's because of the relationship with the clients. And I don't feel there's not this like pressure to produce a certain amount and everyone can really have their own identity. So I like that because I think when you scale bigger than that, you do need everybody to fall in line a little bit with the mission. And then you're becoming the corporate thing that we didn't really want to be
I
a
guess
part
some
of.
people want to be right. Some people, if that's
And
their
there's
plan to be a corporate, great.
yeah,
That's
and that
doesn't seem
exists, and
right.
that's totally fine, and like everything. So I guess that's what boutique. And then I think you just have to ask yourself, like, how much is enough? Do you want to scale to the like multi-million dollar brokerage, or is your life good and you can go to the beach and do some real estate and enjoy? And I think I do feel lucky. Like I don't know what other job I could be doing that gives me this level of freedom. So yeah, I love real estate for what it can help people do because obviously I see my clients like people want to invest in real estate. They want to buy a home, they want to do this. And so they're going to do it anyway. So hopefully I can be a positive piece along the way, but also it's amazing for me because I enjoy what I do each day. So feels like a
It's
win-win.
it's funny because people always say I want to get into real estate for the freedom and the flexibility, and I'm like, my phone can ring 24/7. I tell my clients I'll pick up 18/7. Always texting, always just
But
on
that
a
doesn't
family.
feel like
I To me,
that
it's the
feels
same.
fine to me. I
I
don't
don't
know.
have a problem with it. So it's funny because I have a friend who, when we go to sporting events, he's put your phone down. He's like, be here with me. I'm like, sorry. I go, I will be here, but sometimes I got a text because what makes me better, different, and special is that when my clients reach out to me, I'm going to answer them extremely quickly. That's my secret sauce. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be someone else's. At
Yeah.
least I get to be a game or on the golf course or whatever. But I do want to communicate because the last time I was in LA, actually, as I was getting on the airplane, somebody was going into an open house. And from the airplane, I had to use the Wi Fi to pull up all the information about the house and to prepare a like an inspector to be there the next morning at 9:30 so that we can do a inspection before the 1 o'clock final and best happened. And I got all my ducks lined up. That client wasn't even thinking about moving yet. So they didn't have a pre-approval. I had to do all this on the airplane and get them pre-approved and do all this other stuff. And it was interesting. We closed on it last week.
Yeah, that's
19
great.
offers, 150 people. I
Wow.
never even was in the house with the client. But you know what? So that's why when we always have to be available, always have to be there for our clients, and then we have to make things happen on any schedule.
Yeah.
So,
But that's
um,
I think that's fun.
oh,
I think that's a great
it was
that's
great. I'm on the
thrilling. Like,
plane.
yeah.
I knew that I had to waive for everything with the offer. I had to make a mortgage look like cash. I had to, you know what? They were like, we still want an inspection. So the way that I did an inspection was we inspected as a showing in the morning
Mm,
before it was due. So by the time when we had that done, and I didn't, the
yeah,
clients actually went to work, their parents came. And so basically, I was able to inspect them in an hour, whatever. After the inspection, everyone's, we're good. We can now wait.
we're
We
good.
can waive it. So
Great.
that was right, being creative and getting it done in a way that I
I
didn't
love it.
have to waive it, and it helped us get the deal. So I'm hopeful on my flight to LA this week or next week coming home that I have a deal like that where I can put it together on the airplane.
Yeah,
I I know how to do that. And again, it's just working for the client. So it is flexible in the
yeah,
sense, but on the other hand, we're always available.
totally.
You talked a little bit about how house hacking ideas. What are, in the few minutes that we have left, give me some examples of some of the house hacking tips that you have for people.
Yeah, I think I'm super grateful. It was 2018 when my coworker said, "Hey, if you're looking to buy a house, you should buy a triplex and live in one and rent the other units." And I don't know. Now I feel like people understand that concept, but I just blew my mind. I was like, "Oh, I never even thought about that. That's brilliant." So that was really my goal, was to find a home that had some rental income potential. That's the easy basic version, is like a single family home with an ADU or a guest house or something that's rentable. So you have some income coming in. Markets like LA, it's not going to cover the whole mortgage, but it does help. So I
Yep.
think going from an apartment to a house, and then we essentially had a pretty similar payment when you took in the rental income. And then other,
80 ADUs are an interesting
yeah,
thing because it's very big in LA, and people feel like ADUs are not really legal in much of my part of the market,
yeah,
but they need to be because we can all know that there's a housing crisis. So
yeah.
I think our towns and villages need to be more open to ADUs, and of course, an ADU has to be safe. So it has to be where you have the proper egresses, and the person that's living
Oh,
there is
yeah,
not
yeah.
going to be trapped in a basement or whatever.
No.
That's what we see. But I think trying to open up barns and property garages and making them into ADUs or things like that, I think would help slightly with some of the housing crunch. So there's a need for ADUs, but I love that ADUs is a big thing in California.
Yeah, an ADU is accessory dwelling unit, and I think a lot of houses in LA have historically have guest house or back house or whatever, but the legal pathway really only emerged with ADUs. It used to be completely illegal, but everybody a lot of people had them. So an accessory dwelling unit, yes, has a certificate of occupancy, it's legal, it works, and you can even it keeps opening up. If you have a multifamily property, you could build two ADUs. Even on a single family home, you can build an ADU and a junior ADU. So I would say LA, because there's such a high concentration of like single family homes versus a place like New York, that's been a huge pathway. But it is expensive. It's a construction project. I'm seeing my clients who have renovated homes to resell, flip, they have a lot of success when they do convert a garage to an ADU, because then somebody can come in with 3% down and buy a property with an ADU already, versus buying a home and then having an extra 150, 200K to build is a lot. And there's multi-units. You could live in I just looked at a house property yesterday. It's 3 units. There's one vacant, two that already rented, right? So multifamily. And then people can be creative, like they can rent their house to a daycare facility, or they can rent rooms out. That's what people have done in, like, clients who maybe don't have big families or they don't mind having roommates. They'll buy like a 2 bedroom condo, rent out a room. These are all just ways of how do you make it more affordable. I've helped two families buy a duplex together. So co-buying, I'm partnered with a group called Live Near Friends that helps find communal living properties that could work for co-buying. So all these I would throw in the house hacking category of basically how can you turn your primary home into some income producing to help you live
Right.
there.
I appreciate it. I'm sure we could talk for hours, but our
So yeah,
time's come to an end. Sammy, I want to thank you for coming on the show and applaud you for what you're doing in LA. The working for good, social and racial justice is a huge issue, and it is great to see you a leader in that and trying to give back and make it a better place. So thank you very much. And for everyone, it's Daniel Berger with the Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. Until next week, thank you for listening.
thank you.
If today's stories opened your eyes, wait till you see what's next. Hit the video on screen to join the next adventure with Daniel Berger.